So I think we will go ahead and get started. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited to host our second workshop of 2024 through our program SBIR Connect. Before I introduce our speakers for today, I'd like to talk a little bit about Connect, our program and our partnership for those of you who are new. And I did see a couple of names that I recognize, so some of you aren't, so just bear with me. Connect is a San Diego nonprofit that aims to help entrepreneurs scale through our different programs. Our programs provide different resources, such as access to mentors and education. We have Springboard, Cool Companies, which just closed their applications. That one is once a year. We have different sets of workshops as well, such as this one in our Capital Insight series, as well as different sets of office hours with legal, IT, and as well as our own SBIR office hours. So if you're interested or want to learn more about what Connect has to offer, connect.org is a place to go, or you can email us at team@connect.org with any questions. We'll make sure that we share all of the links that we talk about during the presentations, as well as right now that I'll share with you on an email afterwards to you all. So don't worry too much about writing those down. We'll send them for you. So now for our program, SBIR Connect or SBIR Connect is a Connect program, but it was created through our partnership with NIWC Pacific under NAVWAR. NAVWAR is the Naval Information Warfare Systems Command, and it is one of the Navy system commands or SysComs. Through our partnership, we hope to bring more awareness to the SBIR and STTR program and help foster relationships between government and industry. If you are new to the government and the Navy, and these acronyms and names makes no sense to you, we do have a set of educational videos we can share with you. One of them is an introduction into the Navy, so I'll make sure we add that to the email as well. For awareness, we have a couple of deadlines approaching for SBIR and STTR. The first is the SBIR and STTR 24.1/A cycle, which was extended from February 7th, I believe, until the 21st, which is tomorrow. We also have the Navy's 24.4 direct to phase 2 SBIR, and that one opened for proposals on February 1st, and it will close March 5th, I believe, at 12 p.m. Eastern time. You can check out the Navy topics at NavySaber.com, or you can see all of the DoD topics at DoD-SBIR-STTR.mil. Once again, we'll share those links with you. Now for our speakers today, we're very excited to have Mari Garcia-Reinante and Lauren Heiser from the Information Warfare Research Project, or IWRP. Once again, acronyms, you'll get used to them. But Mari serves as a project lead and Lauren as the Deputy Program Manager for IWRP. We also have with us today Shadi Asu, and he serves as the SBIR and STTR Program Manager at NAVWAR. If you've come through our workshops in the past, you've probably recognized him. So thank you all so much for being here with us today and sharing about your programs. We're really thankful to our speakers. So before we get started, and last thing, we will reserve the questions for the very end. But as the presentations go, please feel free to just drop your questions in the chat as they come up, so we can refer to them during the Q&A portion of the webinar. This will be a shorter webinar than usual. I don't think we'll get it to the hour, but if we do, that's great. So just feel free to ask as many questions that you have, and we'll do our best to get to them. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Lauren. So Lauren, if you could please come on. Thank you.
Hi, Gretel. Just want to do a quick mic check.
Sounds great.
Awesome. All right. Well, Gretel, thank you so much for the introduction and for the opportunity to talk with your members about IWRP. And thanks to everyone who's dialed in right now. I know how busy you all are and how hard it can be to carve out time in your day for these kinds of events. So thank you for taking the time to join us. My name is Lauren Heiser. I'm excited to talk to you about the Information Warfare Research Project, OTA. Like Gretel said, I'm the Deputy Program Lead here for IWRP at PAC, and Mari Garcia-Reinante is also online as the lead for PAC on the call. Before I start the slides, I just wanted to say that while I was preparing to come talk to you all, I took a look at the SBIR Connect website, and I was struck by how similar the mission between SBIR at Connect is with the mission of IDRP. And the mission of IDRP is to foster collaboration between government, industry, and academia to identify, develop, and demonstrate innovative solutions to defense requirements. And as I understand it, that's pretty much exactly the same as SBIR Connect. So it's a great match day. So today I'll be going over what IDRP is, what makes IDRP special, and how you can get involved. So let me go ahead and share my screen really quick. And then let me know, Gretel, can you see it just fine?
Yep, looks great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So what is IDRP? IDRP stands for the Information Warfare Research Project, Other Transaction Agreement, or OTA. And IDRP is a consortium-based acquisition vehicle where we have a consortium management firm, currently ATI, who oversees and coordinates membership, events, and awards made through IDRP. Currently, we have about 844 members, of which 78% are non-traditional and about 75% are small business. As you can see from this graphic, about a quarter of our membership is large business. And why I want to highlight that is that if you're a smaller non-traditional business online right now and you join IDRP, you'll still have access to those larger traditional defense contractors for teaming and mentoring through IDRP. And you can find our complete list of who's a member currently on our IDRP website, which will be shared, I think, after the presentation. So NAVWAR developed IDRP to leverage the OTA authority for prototyping, and that can be found at 10 USC 4022. I'm not going to bore you all by reading it to you, but in a nutshell, it covers a special set of rules for doing prototyping. And so the OTA authority limits us to awarding only prototype projects, but it also allows us to operate under a different and more flexible set of rules and guidelines from regular defense contracting. There are a lot of great reasons why our standard contracting has so many rules and clauses, but it can be really cumbersome to small businesses and other industry members that don't work with us a lot. And so if you're familiar with our typical FAR-based contracting, the OTAs are actually exempt from FAR and DFARS requirements. And so IDRP allows the government to streamline the acquisition process in order to enable the rapid advancement of information warfare technologies to the warfighter. So the entire goal of IDRP is just to create the conditions for the most innovative ideas to be identified, developed, and demonstrated quickly. As you all know, our world moves incredibly fast, and our typical procurement timelines can take sometimes up to or past a year. And so in contrast, IDRP can take somewhere between as short as 30 days for our very fastest award to several months. And so this is one of the ways that we are helping our warfighters keep up with the pace of technology. So what is another transaction agreement? OTAs are a group of legally binding instruments that may be used to collaborate with industry regarding research and prototype projects that may eventually lead to production contracts. Generally speaking, OTAs are very similar to a contract. It's just a term of art inside of the acquisition community. And OTAs are not subject to federal laws and regulations governing typical procurement contracts, which really offers us a lot more flexibility on how we structure awards and more flexibility on the requirements that you all need to meet to engage in the acquisition process. And so typically there's two types of OTAs. There's research OTAs and there's prototype OTAs, and IDRP specifically focuses on prototyping awards. So when you think of a prototype, you might be imagining a new type of cell phone or a new transistor. However, prototyping doesn't have to just be a deliverable widget. A prototype could be a proof of concept, a pilot, a new or novel way of applying a commercial technology for defense purposes, or it could be the creation, design, development, or demonstration of a technology for operational utility, or a combination of all these. While we've had a lot of projects that resulted in a deliverable widget, IDRP has also had prototypes that were specifically demonstrating technologies for defense purposes. And so that might look like some of our IDRP projects might be things that you can hold in your hand or things that we send out on a ship, but some of them could be as abstract as seeing if a 5G system will work for the Navy. So with that in mind, IDRP is focused on providing prototyping solutions in the information warfare domain. And specifically, we have these 15 technology areas covered by IDRP. And so if you can't see the slide or if you're dialed in, I'll go ahead and read them out loud. Cyber warfare, data science and analytics technologies, assured communications, cloud computing, enterprise resource tools, integrated fires, battle space awareness, DevSecOps, autonomy, mobility, model-based systems engineering, on-demand manufacturing, assured command and control, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and elegant design user experience. Obviously, that covers a very wide swath of the information warfare domain. While the mix fluctuates year to year, here at NIWC, we tend to see a lot of our requirements fall under the assured communications technology area. And we've seen some also under model-based systems engineering, as well as data science and analytics technologies. Before I switch from this slide, if you're new to the government, some of these terms might be brand new to you. All of these terms and all their definitions, what they specifically cover, can all be found on the IDRP website. And so again, we'll drop that at the end, but you don't have to know what they all mean today. So far, I've told you why IDRP exists and why the government thinks it's a wonderful thing. I haven't given you a lot of reasons for why you guys should love IDRP, and so I'll go ahead and switch to that now. It's really no secret that government contracting can be very, very complex, and if you haven't contracted with us before, it can be a little daunting to get started. And so one of the key benefits to using IDRP if you're industry is that we specifically minimize the barriers to entry with IDRP. And so some of the ways that we achieve that are through simpler requirements documents, a streamlined acquisition process, and a consortium management firm that's available to assist members with any questions that they might have throughout the entire process. Also, to win an award under IDRP, you either have to be a small or non-traditional business, you either have to include substantial teaming with one, or you have to provide 50% cost sharing. So if you're a smaller non-traditional business, we are really pushing a lot of awards your way with this. Collaboration is also highly encouraged between government requirement owners and industry. In typical defense contracting, government technical teams are required to stop talking to industry as soon as a requirement is published. You might have heard of RFPs. As soon as an RFP goes out, usually that's when we go ahead and stop talking. Everything has to go through contracts and legal, and you get very concise responses back to your questions, maybe days or up to a week after you've posted them. In contrast with IDRP, we not only tell our teams that they can talk with industry after the requirements have been published, but we encourage them to keep that communication flowing all the way until proposals are due. And this means for you guys, you can ask questions to understand the problem better, you can share ideas on your solution, and you can get feedback while it's still relevant to you and while you're building your response. I didn't post it on this slide, but there's also a number of networking and learning events that membership has access to through ATI. ATI is constantly bringing in different things like webinars and lunch and learn events and teaming and mentoring events. And so you can find a whole list of those through ATI or through the IDRP website. So this is going to be my last slide. How do you get involved? Our requirements can only be accessed by IDRP members. Requirements are solicited via IDRP membership website, and they're briefed at our industry day events. We typically have about 4 in-person events each year and 2 to 3 virtual events based on the government's prototyping needs. Usually we have 2 of those in the Charleston area, 1 event in the Virginia Beach area, and 1 event here in San Diego. Our next event is in March, and our next in-person event will be in San Diego this June. And typically what happens at these events is our government teams will come and provide an overview of their requirements, and we'll take questions and answers from audience before breaking out into smaller groups and having one-on-ones with members. So it's a great opportunity to network with the government, get to know the teams that are putting out the requirements, and get some of your initial questions answered. So you can find all the most up-to-date membership information at theidrp.org. Last time I checked, membership for small businesses was $250 annually and $750 for large businesses. And it's completely free for academic institutions and nonprofits to join. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my slides and pause for questions.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that. I actually did take a good look at the website. And so for anyone that's here on the call, the website's super user-friendly and it has all the information that Lauren hinted at. So I'll make sure that we add that to the email that we send out afterwards. I think before we go to Q&A, we're going to go ahead and do Shadi's presentation, and then we'll do both Q&As at the very end. So thank you, Lauren, again. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go ahead and get Shadi going. So while I pull up his slides, please give if he can introduce himself.
Yeah, and thank you. That I'm trying to think of, like, I need like a tally of how many times we've done this or how many times everyone has seen my face on here. But if you don't know me or you're new, my name is Shadi Zoom. I do manage the SBIR and SCTR program at the Naval Information Warfare Systems Command, or NAVWAR. And then I think the last workshop that we did with Kim Reedy was talking an overview of the SBIR 101 program. You can check out that video on demand. And then in talks with Gretel, we thought a nice segue into it for this workshop was to talk about data rights. So before I move to my slides, though, I do have a few disclaimers. Number one is, of course, when you talk about data rights, this is something that I think is best to have a legal representative in the room. So as a program manager, I understand it from the contractual clauses that every small business is afforded when they do win one of our contracts. But I will admit, I am not a lawyer. So a lot of if there are very, very specific data rights questions, or you are a small business that have been awarded an SBA or SCR contract and do have questions about data rights, if and when that does happen, you probably won't just see myself in that room to answer the question, and you'll see also one of our legal attorneys to join with me on that. So that is my disclaimer before I move forward. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the incentives for small businesses to use this program is the data rights that are afforded to you. That's, I think, one of the key features that we do broadcast and ensure that small businesses do or are aware that they do hold rights to the products that they are developed under the SBIR SCTR awards should you receive one. We term those SBIR data rights. However, SBIR data rights is basically a collection of limited and restricted rights, if you're very familiar with those kinds of terminologies in the government sector. And we do explicitly, every time you've been awarded an SBIR or SCTR contract, especially with Navy, you will find a specific clause from the Federal Acquisition Regulation that we put in our contracts that specifically and explicitly state what your rights are. This brief is meant to kind of dispel a lot of, or paraphrase some of the language that is in the FAR, but it is there for you. I believe the clause number, if I did my homework correctly, or I know my job, it's like clause 252.7104. But that is essentially describes to you what rights you do hold. So again, this brief is meant to summarize those. If I had to summarize what SBIR data rights are, it's essentially that the government can use your products, but we can give your products to any non-government entity out there. And so the understanding, of course, is that, of course, competition is very fierce. And so without those rights, a small business is not would kind of be minimized in the works or in the sale of their products if said work products were distributed outside of the government. So this is meant to help grow a small business portfolio, but also allow them to prosper with what they've developed under the SBIR CDR contract. Next slide, please. So if you are familiar with SBIR data rights, they have changed since May of 2019. Before, the data rights were a 5-year renewable period. And what that essentially means is that anytime before May 2019, if you've been awarded an SBIR contract, at the end of that contract, it starts a 5-year clock. And every time that you have a follow-on contract, that clock resets for another 5 years. And that 5-year period is where you are protected or you hold those SBIR data rights. Well, now that has changed. SBA pushed out a policy from all awards that start from May 2019 and beyond, that it's a period of 20 years and it's a non-renewal period. So it starts the clock at 20 years from the start date of your first SBIR award. If you're very familiar with the SBIR process, we do have videos just in case you aren't. But if, for example, you submitted a proposal in response to one of our topics and you receive a phase 1 award, that SBIR data rights period starts the clock for 20 years from the start date of that phase 1 contract. So anytime you get a follow-on contract from that phase 1 contract, it still is a part of that 20-year period. Next slide, please. So before we get into what rights are held, it's probably best to categorize what work is performed under an SBIR SER contract. So remember, this is SBIR data rights. So it deals with data, not specifically like hardware type products. But when we think of that type of work, we think that it consists of computer software and any technical data. So technical data, and I'm going a little bit ahead, could be any recorded information. It could be a design document. It could be, in this case, computer database. Any documentation that is related to specific software is considered technical data. And of course, I think it's pretty explanatory what computer software includes. And specifically, it is an executable, any of your source code that you produce, that is all lumped into a general term of computer software. So it's important to know those two different terms because there is a specific clause that refers to them in terms of what your rights are. Next slide, please. Within computer software and technical data, though, there are some subcategories to it. Number one is form, fit, and function data. So this is any, with respect to technical data, it's any data, as we state here, relating to items, components, or processes that are sufficient to enable physical and functional interchangeability. And any data that identifies source, size, configuration, matching, and attachment characteristics. This is obviously a very open-ended terminology, and we do categorize that when you do make your award. So be aware of that. There's another subcategory to computer software and technical data called operations, maintenance, installation, training data. It's a little bit easier to understand. So any training manuals that you create has its own subcategory from technical data and computer software. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that generally for all technical data and computer software, the government may use, modify, reproduce, perform, display, release, or disclose, but any of that technical data is still within the government. And if they're using your software, it's only on government systems. So it is not given to like a third-party contractor. It's not given to any other non-government organization as a means to protect the rights that you have. And then, thank you, the next slide too. So, and then for 20 years, the government cannot release, disclose, or permit access to technical data or computer software without the written permission of the firm, unless the government has entered into a non-disclosure agreement with the third party. So even with partnering with other government agencies, like if you're working with a particular program office and we would like to share this with another government agency, still, even though it is within the government realm, we do provide notification to the companies to make sure that their data rights, their products are still okay to be shared with that government agency or that partnering government agency. Next slide, please. I mentioned the subcategories to form, fit, and function data and for the operations, maintenance, installation, and training data because they're the one special category with that exception to where the government does get unlimited data rights to that. Again, this is very malleable and depends on the type of solution that is produced through the SBIR ICTR work, but this is one, I would say, exception to the clause where the government does get unlimited rights to that specific data. Next slide, please. These are 3 questions that we have as this slide and the next slide, and then actually that's kind of a wrap with that, but these are the frequently asked questions that we do get with respect to the data rights. The first question is what happens after 20 years? And essentially put here, the government does obtain a royalty-free license. So it's basically unlimited rights given to the government. And so that's important to, I guess, capitalize on that 20-year period that you do have. The second question is very, very important. We have seen some small businesses that don't do this, but anytime that you submit a proposal in response to any solicitation through SBIR, it's important to assert your data rights. What this basically means is if you already have data rights associated with previous SBIR work products and you're bringing it into your proposal, it's important to mark that. If you do not mark it, the government automatically assumes unlimited rights. And we always tell companies, especially during outreach, when you're submitting something, please know your data rights and always assert it every time you're submitting a proposal. Next slide. And then this is also an important thing, can data rights be negotiated? Even though we say yes, and after the award is made, it's really important that we as the government are not allowed to negotiate data rights prior to award. And that's one, I would say, taking solace in knowing that you as a small business are protected with your data rights, and the government cannot coerce you or negotiate any of those data rights as a condition for an award or as part of an award. I have had some companies do come to us and do offer unlimited data rights, which is of course their discretion. But even for myself, I do get a memo from them to be sure that the government did not provide any coercion of such. So that, again, this is another benefit of using this program, is that prior to an award, negotiation for data rights is off the table. I think this might be my last slide. It is. Okay.
Thank you, Shadi. That was great. I think it's extremely important, especially if you are planning on embarking on the journey to understand your data rights, as well as understanding them if you already have a SBIR award, if you weren't aware of them. So I think with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with the frequently asked questions. So if everyone can join me on camera. And what I'll do is I'll go through the questions that were asked here first, and then I'll go ahead and start with the questions that were submitted during registration time. So the very first one I think was meant for Lauren and Mari, but I also think that's something that Shadi can probably sort of answer in terms of SBIR. So the question is, I have a product in AI, so how do I get a contract to make a prototype? And so you guys can maybe talk a little bit about the process of the topics and proposals.
Sure. For IDRP, the way that the government solicits responses to our prototype solutions is during these industry day events, we'll go ahead and put out a problem statement, and we'll tell you which technology area it typically falls under. And so if you're a member of IDRP, a few weeks before the event will take place, you'll get a listing of all the government requirements that are coming out and which areas they cover, and you can take a look and see if your solution might fit any of our problems. Over to Mari if you want to fill in anything more there.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would add is that the IWRP office does not come up with topics, right? These are topics that our technical teams in support of a sponsor, will have a need, for a prototype. So they reach out to Lauren and I, and they tell us, we're interested in using IWRP, in order to find solutions for, and then they tell us their topic. So, just wanted to make sure that we were clear that we're not coming up with topics. It is based on the needs of, for Lauren and I specifically, of our NIWC Pacific projects and teams.
For the SBIR side, we do have topics that we encourage you to look to see if it's something is in line with what you've produced. I think I can put the answer. I was trying to find like a good chat, but it's the DoD SBIR SAQR website. I will put it on. I think I answered it, Gretel, for you, but I put the link there, and you can actually type in a couple of keywords that is related to your product and see if there's an open solicitation, not just Navy, but all of DoD that might be interested in what you have produced. So that's one direction that you could take, at least within the SBIR realm.
Thank you to everyone. And I think I'll just ask this question out of curiosity and follow up. I had asked this question to Mari earlier, but I think another difference between SBIR and IWRP is also budget. So I think if you're familiar with SBIRs, not the not to exceed amounts. So I'm going to ask Lauren and Mari if you guys can talk a little bit about the budget that you have for each one of your projects.
And Mari, I'll let you go first.
Well, I was just going to say, we actually don't have any limitations as far as the funding amount. It really is, on what, the prototype will cost, and if it's within what the teams can afford. We've had prototypes that are in the hundreds of thousands and some that are in the tens of thousands of dollars. It just, really depends, and there isn't a limit.
Beautiful. And I think just to clarify for everyone, both of these programs are competitive programs, hence why you're submitting proposals and also budget. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's correct. Great. So I'll move on to the next question. And I think this one is for Shadi. So we are creating and plan to submit a budget for an SBIR. During the project, can we adjust the hourly rate for people working on the project, or is the rate fixed for the entirety of the project?
Okay, so it is fixed for the duration of the phase. So if SBIR, you have 3 phases to the program, each of those phases are independent contracts into themselves. So your phase 1 separately is a contract, phase 2 is a separate contract, and phase 3 is one too. The rate is fixed, or you submit that in your proposal, what that is across the years in your cost proposal at the time of proposal, and it's kept that way throughout that particular contract. So I would say it's fixed, but of course you can change it if it's like a multi-year contract within the contract. But again, I would defer that to a contracting officer for that particular question.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if this applies to the IWRP program, or is it kind of similar where? Yeah.
I don't know if it does.
Okay, I'll just move on. Okay, great. This is also for a SBIR question. It says, my understanding is an audit will be triggered in the event of a company reaching $750K per year in SBIR grants. What is included and not included when calculating that amount?
Sorry, that is.
You're good. You're getting a call.
I am trying to. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm going to go off mute to silence everything.
Oh, good. And then I'll kind of just add on to the question. It says, for example, if I got a DoD SBIR for 600K and then a DOE SBIR for 600K and also doing subcontract work, is that technically more than 750K per the entirety of that SBIR? So I'm assuming the question is more, is it per SBIR or in total of all SBIR amounts?
Okay, sorry, I had to like, this is what happens when you have multi tabs in your Chrome. You're trying to figure out which Teams one do I need to mute. Okay, so I'm not familiar with the type of audit, if that is a DCAA audit. So if that same attendee would like to clarify what kind of audit it is, there's another type of audit that we do that SBA conducts. Navy has its own particular audit, but on a very technical level. So I'm going to say I am not sure, depending on who initiates that particular audit. So if that attendee would like to clarify at the chat while we answer the other questions, I think that would be helpful. That was a long-winded answer for just quieting everything that's going on.
Yes, and yeah, and if you also would like to just send us that question to our email so we can answer it, or you want to provide more information, you can send it to info@navwarsibir.com. But if not, yeah, please feel free to clarify a little bit more on the Q&As. This one's a good question, but I'm not sure. So are data rights different between your program? So does IWRP have any specific data rights for the program itself?
I think that under IWRP, they always seek to have unlimited government purpose rights. If that's how you say it, right, yeah. Lauren?
Yes. So it is negotiable. We do look to do government purpose rights or unlimited data rights. However, like Shadi was talking about, when you put in a proposal, you're going to do your data rights assertions at that time. So if you have any data rights that you specifically want to call out as they relate to your milestones, that's the time to do it.
Great, thank you. So I'll mark those done. I'm going to ask one that came through the registration. And this one is, how is an OTA different than a SBIR contract award? So I'm not sure if Shadi, maybe you want to share about like the SBIR contracting, and then maybe Lauren can kind of reinforce what OTAs are.
I feel like the simplest, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren and Mari, is SBIR contracts are governed by the Federal Acquisition Regulation, whereas for OTAs, they're not. I think they're both, SBIRs use different contracting types governed by the FAR, like a firm fixed price contract or a cost plus fixed fee contract. All the common denominator is the fact that they are FAR based. I think that's the essential difference between the two, but I'll defer to Lauren and Madi for that.
I completely agree, Shadi. The other thing that I would add on is that an OTA is a type of contracting vehicle. And so kind of back to what Shadi was saying, right? SBIR is more of a program for the whole thing and has its own contract vehicles within it. The OTA is a type of contract vehicle. So
thank you. I have a question here, and that one I think is more regarding what the topic areas of both of your programs are, but is the Navy interested in large, long duration flow energy storage? You can just say if it's not within your...
Well, I think too, like, I think for the other question that dealt with AI, if they would like to check out that same link of the DoD website, they can check that and specifically use that terminology to search for any active solicitations. Just on a rudimentary scan, I do think that like Department of Energy does participate in the SBIR SCTR program. They have and do have topics or research areas related to energy storage. So I would encourage them to also look at the DOE SBIR website and see if there's any active solicitations there.
Yeah, and I'll kind of add to that as well. On the NAVWAR.SBIR.com website, we have all the other agencies that participate in SBIR and links to their own program. Even though the SBIR STTR program is the same in some ways, everyone runs it a little bit different and everyone has their own areas of responsibility and topics. And then also bringing it to IWRP, because I did look at the website, they have really good explanations of their topic areas in there as well. So I would probably take a look at that as well to see if that program would be interested in your technology as well. This one's for Shadi. Do all NAVWAR program offices support, I'm assuming support the SBIR program, and is there a specific PM name for the early engagements?
So they all do support. I think we do have one program office for military sales. That's PMW 740 that does not participate just because it's like not related to SBIR. But generally, yes, in some capacity, each of the program offices, or the NAVWAR, we call them PMWs, do contribute to SBIR in terms of posting a topic. It is not predictable when they do post a topic. It varies throughout the year depending on what their specific needs are and when they would need those needs addressed. And then I'm going to dissect the second question about early engagements. We engage internally, we engage with our program offices almost on a weekly basis. A small business can't engage, I would say, necessarily with the program managers or any individuals within the program office to formulate a topic. In the interest of fairness of the program, small businesses cannot collaborate with a representative from a program office or a PNW in NAVWAR's case, because that might show a little favoritism or leniency towards that particular small business should it be competed. However, we're happy to introduce you to individuals within that program office. We actually are really close with the Office of Small Business Programs, which were guest speakers at our last workshop. And they can introduce you to just have basic conversations, but not specifically in developing a topic. But if you wanted to share about your product or technology, we can match you with an office there. That was a long-winded answer as well.
Yeah, and then if you need a little summary of some of those PMWs that do participate in the NAVWAR, specifically NAVWorks, remember the Navy's also huge, there's other syscoms. NAVWARSybir.com has all of those PMWs and the summary of what they do too. So the more that you can add to the email as to who you're wanting to meet and what your company does, the better we can match you with those people and do our best to provide those introductions. Okay, so I think we're done with the ones that were hosted here, but I do have a couple of more that were posted during registration. So I'm going to go ahead and open those up so I can ask them. The first one, I'll go ahead and ask Mari and Lauren. And so is there a criteria or eligibility for small businesses or organizations to become members of IWRP?
Yes, again, not to be a broken record, all that information is on the IWRP.org website, but it's pretty basic. The one big thing that I didn't mention before is that IWRP is only open to US based companies. So that's probably the first thing you need to check off the box. But then there's just a few things that you need: a SAM.gov account, an active DD 2345, and then a signed copy of the membership agreement, and I think your unique identity identifier. So it's pretty basic, and ATI is very open to helping you with any of those questions you might have as you're going through the process.
Thank you. And I think some of those are very similar to SBIR as well. Those first three you mentioned, besides the membership signature, is also the same for SBIR as well. So let's see, what's another one? Does your program, so IWRP, and actually maybe for Shadi as well, work with other agencies, or is it just within the Navy or DoD?
For NIWC Pacific specifically, we try to stay just within NIWC PAC. What projects, want to leverage IWRP? But I know, so this is, IWRP is a NIWC Atlantic contract, right? So I know that NIWC Atlantic and headquarters, may use the the IWRP, and they support external to direct pack. So they might, have someone from ONR, from NAVWC, from some of other commands coming directly to them without necessarily having a project that's supporting them.
Thank you, Mari. And then for those who are new to what NIWC is, so as an example, NAVWAR would be a headquarters. So you can think of the NIWCs as like the research extension arm of those. So thank you. And we, like I said, we do have an introduction to the Navy video that kind of explains what that is as well. That Shadi, you'll get to see his face for a good amount of minutes explaining that. Shadi, do you want to take a stab at that one as well?
So I was thinking of cases, and we have cases where NAVWAR has partnered up with another Navy command on SBIR topics or projects before. And we have had a few cases where outside of the Navy, one of our program offices has linked up with a partnering agency. One such example, we had one in our MUOS, or space program office, that we did have, PW 146, at one point had a joint award with the Missile Defense Agency. So that's one example that we do. I think not the challenge, but of course, when two partnering agencies do work together on a topic or an award, it's hard to find out which component or who actually owns that piece. That's why it's so atomic. But there are cases where we have partnered up, yes.
Thank you, Shadi. This one just came through. Do we have to be members of IWRP to attend the events in March and June?
Yes. It's pretty fast to join. So I will say if you are thinking about becoming a member, I'll always leave some wiggle room, but in general, it takes within a week if you have everything ready to go. So it shouldn't be a too big of a barrier to join.
But everybody has access to the topic, titles and a real brief description via sam.gov. So, they could look to see what's going to be presented at IWRP. And then if there is a topic that their interest, then, they might, decide to join then. So, you do have, it's limited, but, you do have access. Everybody has access to that.
Thank you. And then I'm assuming that's the same for when you want to receive, when the RFPs open up and everything and communication, it's easier if you're a member, you just to receive it.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. That was another question that came through the back end. So we got that one. For IWRP, do you help foster collaboration among its members? So I'm assuming this is from small business to small business. I'm assuming that's what that one is.
Yeah. And Lauren mentioned a lot of that during her presentation, so I'll let her, say it again. But yeah, through ATI.
Yeah. So Mari and I don't personally get involved as the government, but ATI, our consortium manager, hosts many events throughout the year where they connect members to members. And if you have a specific technology and you're looking for somebody to partner with, I know they do some matchmaking events there as well. So
thank you. And then I only have two questions left, one for Lauren and Mari and one for Shadi. So I'll go with Shadi first. What do I do if I feel like my firm's SBIRs, CTRs data rights are not being adequately protected?
Contact me, please. And it seems simple, but I think it's good to have just one POC to reach out to at the very least. You can contact your contracting officer that's listed on the contract. If it's a NAVWAR specifically one, default to me. I can help with that.
And then for all the other Navy SysComs, SBIRs, if you don't have, like the Shadi's email, they are all listed at NavySyBIR.com. All their team emails are there, and they're all pretty quick at responding from my experience. So thank you, Shadi. All right, last question for Lauren and Mari. Can you provide any information on any current or recent projects that you've been involved in?
current, like as far as the ones that are executing now. I don't know that information, you probably, unless you're a member, you wouldn't be able to see it. But I mean, I could say that we've had several projects that are currently ongoing that are supporting OUSD on their 5G efforts. So we probably have, I don't know, like I'm gonna say like maybe 10 to 15 awards that we've done, for those. There were, 3 that were, pretty big, that were setting up the infrastructure, and then some that were setting up the applications that would leverage that infrastructure. A lot on Sure Communications. We have several teams that, in support of PMW 170, have done several prototypes, and some have moved to production. And I can't remember if Lauren mentioned that, with IWRP, if, one of the things that could happen if there is a prototype that it has been, tested and it's successful, and the sponsor and team can move it to a production award, that could be either a FAR-based award or another transaction without having to recompete it. That's, and we're doing some of those. NIWC Atlantic has done a lot more than we have, but we've, started to do some of those for our Assure Communication projects. We've done, a few in support of Project Overmatch. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's a big Navy initiative. And that, again, it's in Assure Communications. And then the other one was Mission Autonomy. We have a handful of those awards that are ongoing now.
Thank you, Maureen. I think that's great. And then for PMW 170, so they actually came and spoke to. So if you're interested in learning about what they do, we do have a recording of their presentation. I think with that, I mean, we're almost at 2. So if there are any other questions from the attendees, I think we can go ahead and say goodbye. I do want to thank all of you so much for being here today and spending not just this hour, but the previous prep time that we had going to get this going. We're very thankful. And to all of our attendees, also very thankful for your time. We will be sharing the recording as well as the slides and any of the links that we mentioned on an email in the next day or 2. And if you have any questions, team@connect.org or info@navwarciber.com. Also, any questions for Mari and Lauren, you can send to me and I'll forward to them. So thank you guys so much. And I hope you have a nice rest of the week.
Thanks, Gretel. Thanks for the invite.
You guys have a good one.